war. Let's just come back to Ukraine for a moment. And I was just intrigued to see this with the Ukraine news agency. This was Zelenskyy essentially crowing that Keir Starmer had been on the phone to him. But this is in relation to a 100-year agreement between Ukraine and the UK. 100-year. We can't sort out the potholes in the road in UK, but apparently we can plan for 100 years when it comes to Ukraine. Now, what interested me about a 100-year agreement with UK and Ukraine was I'd previously just seen this headline, and I thought it was an interesting contrast. Ukraine to be told it is too corrupt to join NATO. So apparently Ukraine is not corrupt enough for Keir Starmer to want to halt a 100-year agreement. And there's something very wrong. This should result in questions being asked in Parliament. And I'm going to encourage our audience to get writing, get emailing, challenge those new Labour MPs to ask what on earth they're doing with UK taxpayers' money. But this is what Zelenskyy had to say. He said that he'd had a phone conversation with Keir Starmer on Friday, the day Starmer was appointed as the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Joe Biden was first, Zelenskyy was second for the phone call, and Netanyahu third. Zelenskyy went on to say that during the call they discussed the UK's support and the preparation of a, quote, unprecedented 100-year partnership agreement between the two countries. This is incredible, Mike, when you think about it. Utterly incredible. He said he congratulated Sir Keir Starmer on his election victory and wished him success in fulfilling the British people's expectations of the new government. I'm grateful to Prime Minister Starmer for reaffirming the UK's principled and unwavering support for Ukraine. That unwavering means that Ukraine can do as it pleases. He also said that we coordinated positions ahead of the NATO summit in Washington and other international events, as well as discuss ways to strengthen our partnership, including the preparation of an unprecedented 100-year partnership agreement between the Ukraine and the UK. Now, if that is not bad enough, I was just tweaked, I think is the word, to have a little look back at the Anti-Defamation League, because they'd been talking about the sorts of symbology used in Ukraine and the Nazi symbols, the swastika and the rune symbology used by the Ukrainian armed forces. But surprisingly, although they commented on Ukraine, there was absolutely no criticism of right-wing extremism, the Nazis or Nazi symbolism in Ukraine. And I was very puzzled about this. Why is it that Ukraine is allowed to be extremist and brutally violent in this way? And that is not going to cause comment by ADL. But anybody else, including people who are talking about the Great Reset, are branded as extremists, right-wing extremists. I'll leave our audience to answer that. But let's just come back to the database of extremism and hate that I mentioned earlier, because here is some of the things that the ADL is very excited about, and you can see why I've made the comment I just have, because they particularly relate to symbologies being used by, for example, the Azov battalion in Ukraine, but they also talk about the Celtic cross, and they also talk about the biblical phrase, the synagogue of Satan. So rather disturbing here that the ADL is clearly attacking Christians and trying to brand them as being right-wing extremists due to historical artifacts such as the Celtic cross, for example. But apparently even the Bible is something we shouldn't read. They even given a reference to Revelation 2.29 and 3:9 in the Bible. And this is where the term synagogue of Satan is used. But of course, if you go and have a look at that, the warning is about people who call themselves Jewish and are not. So I don't know what the problem with ADL is if the biblical statement is about fraudulent Jewish people. And what have we got here? Well, even if you're Jewish, you're going to be attacked, because ADL being particularly unpleasant with the Jewish Voice for Peace, which is a Jewish group standing up for peace in Gaza and elsewhere in the world. So a lot of questions to be answered about these powerful lobbying groups and their extreme power now within the UK cabinet and around our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And I'm going to say that UK Column is not frightened to ask these questions. They're questions that need to be asked and answers obtained.